Good.
I am, hang on one second. I am just removing, Tira, are you there? I think she's there. I
I
have,
am here. I'm just gathering.
no
She
worries,
might
no
be
worries.
talking on mute.
I just wanted to let you know, I just kicked your, note taker out. Um,
Oh,
I'm
okay, that's
going,
fine.
I'm gonna, I have, this call is being recorded and we'll make sure we upload it into the member community. The last time I did did a training a couple weeks, 3 weeks ago, it was just me talking to myself, which I do a lot of. So,
I know that feeling.
yeah. Um, and I actually think this one will be relatively brief, unless of course we have great conversation, which I welcome. Today
Awesome.
we're talking about business burnout and really entrepreneurial business burnout. And I got a little ahead of myself on my slides, so let me put it back to my first one. How's that? Did you guys all have a good fourth? Did you have a good fourth?
I was a yes, but I want to give Sarah a chance to talk. But I was like, we had a great time and met a bunch of families who are local in Frisco because our friends are now local up here. And it's
Nice.
like meeting all these local families, and it's like it's starting to become more of a real thing that we might move up here next summer and downsize and live in the condo. And it's scary,
Wow.
but when you're an entrepreneur,
And you don't, yeah.
like I could. And it actually, if we rent out our house in Denver, I could actually pay both mortgages without having. So like then that would give us some, more leeway too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I might be manifesting some stuff I'm not necessarily ready for, but it's amazing, you know.
If you build it, they will come,
They will
right?
come. Yeah, that's the hope.
I got some of my biggest clients while living in the bus, which was, great and fun.
Yeah.
But in the winter time, because we didn't really our planning and execution didn't necessarily work out the way we wanted. Like the goal was never winter, except that our daughter, a freshman in college in Michigan, and
Oh.
we weren't sure she was going to transition well, so we took an assignment in Madison, Wisconsin, because that was the closest we could get. But it was the fall, and we thought that we would be only a couple of weeks of cold, and it just hit so much earlier. And so I'm having sales calls with people, and it looked like a bomb shelter. And I'm like, I promise. I mean, this is it, So I mean, take it or
This
leave
is
it,
why you have a fake background,
Right.
because
And I
nobody
was just
knows
like,
where I am.
but I was like, I'm bound to disappoint them eventually. So I'm just going to be real and authentic the whole time. And it was just a fun, but we had,
Yeah.
that silver poppy paper stuff that people will sometimes put on top of their pool for
Yeah.
thermal. Yeah, that was
Huh?
coating all the windows. It literally, it looked like a bomb shelter. And I'm like, no, this
Wow.
is our home and we choose to do this because then we can just pick up and go.
Yeah.
So
Now, was this a full-size school bus? Did you say?
yeah, when we left Denver in 2019, we moved into
Okay.
a bus that I converted. So,
Wow. A friend of mine has Betty Lou's school bus. And
oh,
yeah.
her name was Wanda, and
Oh,
she
there you go.
was expensive and a total blast, and I learned so much. So,
Yes.
um,
Oh my gosh.
and
We
if it
love
wasn't
doing
the
tiny house
pandemic, we
stuff.
might
So
have still been living in it, but you
yeah.
never know. So,
Yeah. Wow.
anyways, all right. So, before I turn on my little slides, I wanted to share I wanted to share a personal story, and I also wanted to share sort of the reason why, what inspired this particular topic when I was putting things together for the rest of the year. And this is as much for the people who come back and watch this video later on. So, Tira, are you familiar with the Polka Dot network?
Mhm.
Okay. So, because I can't remember where we met.
Carrie referred me to you.
Okay, and I think I thought at that time, but I feel like when I stalked one of your pictures, you might be a polka dot.
I am
Okay.
Okay,
in
great.
Placer County.
So then I don't remember what particular Facebook group it was on, but I found it very alarming. This was probably 3 months ago. Somebody asked a question in one of the Facebook groups, or one of the, like, a discussion thing. Tell me you're an entrepreneur without saying you're an entrepreneur. And I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be great." And I thought it was going to be like I can work from anywhere. It was like 75 comments of people talking about the fact that they can't remember when they had their last meal. They haven't seen their family. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I, like, my heart cried for all these people who eat, breathe, sleep, and live their business to like, and what it felt like, it felt toxic. And it made me feel really sad for folks that didn't have a better way, I guess, of managing their time. And the sad part is the outcome of that has a tendency to be burnout. And then what happens in burnout when there's no one to rescue you? And so that was kind of the inspiration to put it on the calendar. But I also wanted to share my own experience with burnout that I encountered unplanned. And I've been pretty vocal about this. Like when I really felt it was when I moved back to Colorado. And April, thanks so much for being here, April. April probably remembers this period of time because she was one of our members back then. So November of 2023, I had done a bunch of trainings on how to host a good Black Friday Small Business Saturday launch. And despite the fact that I was packing up all of our house by myself and moving it across the country alone, I decided to go for the gusto. And I wanted to be a good role model to our community. And so I created this huge promotional opportunity while I'm also packing my stuff and trying to figure out where to put all the animals and yada, yada, yada. And so the first week of December, back then our system didn't have the timers that we have right now. So we have these timers that allow you to create a special opportunity and say it's good for X number of days. And then when that period is over, the offer goes away. And back then you had to manually manage when the offer expired. You could put a timer on there, but nothing was going to happen. Whereas now when the timer expires, it changes the page. So it takes away the offer for you. So I roll out tens of thousands of dollars worth of opportunities for our clients at killer savings. And everybody said yes, all of it. And when it came time to pack up the moving truck and move across the country, I was so overwhelmed with all the moving, I didn't have time to turn off the offer. And so on the good side, people kept buying. As I'm driving across the country, I'm getting email alerts. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. This is awesome. Also, this expired 2 days ago. And my cat just peed on me, and my dog keeps sliding in the back here, and I'm pulling a car. I was just barely hanging on. And so then I got to Denver, and I took my tiny little vacation for Christmas and came back in January, and I was exhausted and had to fulfill on all the promises that we'd made to our clients. And I didn't want to do it. I was real tired, and I was real grumpy. And what I found was, I was in a full, the burnout was not just so much, not about the business. It was about what I had bit off. I bit off more than I could chew at the time. It was the only time. And at that point, it was, 9 3/4 years of business that I thought the house of cards could come crumbling down. I really might have a problem here because I have to fulfill in all these promises. But it was really mostly about my own personal energy. And so what I had to do was keep the business going while also fulfilling all those promises. So when I share this little, chat, and I hope that you all will contribute as well, your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, know that I'm not standing on a soapbox being like, do as I say, not as I do. I'm starting by airing all my dirty laundry and saying, been there, done that, never want to do it again. And so, learn from me if you've not already been there, and also know there's hope. So the happy ending that came from that experience was, I read a book at the time that I tell everybody about. It's called Clockwork, and it allowed us to reevaluate how we deliver our promise. And it's the big distinction between the experience that April got and the experience, Tira, that you and Nicole are getting. And that came from I was really tired and like, hey, this is not a sustainable way to support our clients, to how do we do a better job of setting our clients up for success. And it came from, okay, we're gonna take a good hard look at what's working and what's not, both for ourselves as well as for how we're serving our community. But we did all of that while managing the business. So, and when I sat down and reassessed my goals for the year, one of my goals last year was to love my business again. And so I think, it actually makes me a little bit emotional because I had never felt that before. And I also have had the privilege of being someone who's always loved my career. I've never been in a job that I've never loved. I don't think I don't think I could. So this idea of showing up for work and not being super excited about it was just a really, scary place to be. And so I feel very grateful to be able to, one, share the experience, but also say you can be in a dark place and find your way out of it, So yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tira, since you and I don't get to spend a whole lot of time together, April and I've got history, and Nicole and I are in a networking group, so I actually know how tall she is. One of the things that I feel like is really important for me is I'm an open book about all the things. So ask me any question and I'll tell you the answer, or my version of the answer. But like, I never want to be that person who sort of creates this, oh yeah, I made $1 million overnight. By the way, I'm not making $1 million. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I really want to be fully transparent on my own journey and learning experience because I hope that it will inspire others. So with that, that's not
Well, and something that you said to me in our onboarding or selling process that really made a difference for me was, if I understood it correctly, that it's part of your mission to help coach your niche coaches and whoever that sweet spot is to really have successful businesses.
Yes.
However they choose to define them. I mean, you can buy coaching and you can buy programs and you can buy a million things, and I don't even want to say how many six figures I've invested in mine, and have all these promises and still be struggling and think that you don't trust your instincts anymore. You don't trust anything because you've made decisions that have allowed you to move in a certain direction, and it just, but you keep following forward. I mean, it's amazing to me that I don't quit, that I find something else, or I find something else to talk about, or something else to do. And I believe that there's a need for me, but this is a novel way to try to do that. But I liked your mission of trying to help us all be more successful at our businesses without a lot of struggling and suffering and burnout, like you say. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you. And that came from my own struggles and feeling like nobody should have to do that, So I really appreciate you. I love that you remember that, and thank you for calling that out. Thank you. Okay, so I got my screen set up the right way. I thought I did. Hang on. I lost the other one. Where did you go? There it is. Okay. Now I share this one. And like I said before, as we're chatting through stuff, if there's something that comes to mind, feel free to share. My intention is, to provide value, but if you can take it to the next level, please don't hesitate to say something. And then the last thing I'll say is, I stopped doing these trainings for a while. I needed a break. But one of the things that I've done over the last year is go back and look at the numbers. And what I have found is that even if I never had really great attendance at any of these business booster trainings, people come back and watch them. So don't feel like know that the seed that you're planting might be so much deeper and greater than have better reach than just the people that are here on the Zoom today. So we're going to talk about building a business that supports your energy and not one that drains it. And so I love me a good statistic. And so I brought some nerdy stats for you ladies. So number one, 50, now we're not exclusively women, but we're still in the 95 percentile of our clients are still women. So I called out some specifics around women also because we tend to be more of the helpers I think we experience burnout at a higher rate and at a deeper level than men do. It doesn't mean that they don't experience it. It just probably looks and feels a little bit different. And maybe they are better at boundaries and or just self-care than women are. So 54% of female founders, not founds, not sure where the rest of those letters went, experience burnout, including in businesses that they love and care passionately and deeply about. So I was one of those 54% of the people who believed that I was serving an important mission and a purpose, and I was a crispy critter. To that point, also, the burnout doesn't necessarily have to come from the business, but you can have that burnout feeling and experience in your business. 83% experience high stress, 78% have persistent anxiety. Does that feel familiar to anyone? I think being a business owner is incredibly freeing and insanely intimidating. And, this idea that my family's livelihood is dependent upon my ability to sustain whatever I've created. I mean, first it's making money, and then it's how do I keep making money and talking yourself out of not being a one-hit wonder or any of those other things. So it's perfectly normal and reasonable to understand or relate to this idea that we live in a consistent state of anxiety or stress. Doesn't necessarily make it good or healthy, it just makes it reality. 68% of entrepreneurs work 50 plus hours a week. April, I can't remember if you had popped in after I had said this or not, but part of the inspiration for this training was a Facebook post where I saw the number of people talking about how they were skipping meals, working all weekend, missing things, missing important things in their life. And so when our business is all consuming, what are the things where else are we paying that price? 46% of women of small business owners say that fatigue is a top challenge. And the reason why I kept this or put this number in here is because one of the other places that I think burnout shows up is in our creative output. And we, as visionaries in our business, have to be able to, I'm not talking about graphic design and pretty things. I'm talking about being a visionary, understanding the trajectory of where the business is going is a creative endeavor. And so when we are burned out, it's really hard to pull out that sort of information. And when we're making a ton of decisions about our business, that burnout can show up in creative output as well. And it's not just about the stress, it's about the constant feeling that there is never an off switch. We are always on, always doing the thing, never get to rest, and it is exhausting. So what are some of the sources of burnout? I just sort of planted the seed. There's no off button. Every task, email, crisis runs through you. You are the decision maker, the visionary, and the bottleneck. So it doesn't matter how aware you are. Whether if you're not able to share that burden with someone else, it's very easy to constantly feel like you are carrying the weight of the world. And as your business grows, as success, takes hold in its different ways, shapes, and forms, if you haven't already experienced this yet, the only thing that happens when you reach a goal as a type A driven entrepreneur is the goal changes and changes. And so we never get to feel the benefits of our work because we've just set another goal and are criticizing ourselves because we're not there yet, the emotional labor. And I included this because I know that we have a lot of members in our community that are also moms. And so the emotional labor is working from home or juggling. We have a member, Katie, who does a ton of stuff for mompreneurs, and she's really focused on, providing a lot of support during these summer months when you are both the cruise director and still a business owner. And how do you do all of those things? Tara, what you got? I see your hands up.
Well, I'm just wondering, I'm not seeing anything mentioned in here about revenue, money, and how much is that the root pressure? Like if you're in a business and you've made some goals and some commitments that this is going to help yourself or help your family or, for clarity, I'm retired, but I'm working in retirement and I'm doing it because I love the work. At the same time, I'd love to take less from my retirement if I could, right? Mm-hmm. But I just feel at the root of it for me is the pressure to make money. And I'm not seeing that in here.
Yeah, so I would say that your goal is revenue. Somebody else's goal might be, a certain kind of program experience, or they want their business to look like somebody else's. And so, but you're sort of making my point of what we typically do is we set a goal, and your goal might be make X number of dollars. But then when you get there, you find that it costs more money to make that money. So now the goalpost is moved again. And it's this constant feeling of what I have is never enough. And so I keep driving and pushing and pushing and pushing. And that takes me to number 3, which is peer pressure. So you can do it for yourself, but there's also all this stimulus coming from outside sources pushing us to drive harder. Marie Forleo, a couple years ago, I got to hear her keynote presentation, and I don't remember where I was, but she released a book about getting off the hustle train. And I was just really inspired by it because she called out the thing that we do where we never get to celebrate, and where all we're doing is constantly go, 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 and not giving ourselves space and time to rest or reflect or navigate, difficult things that are happening in our life, or, et cetera, et cetera. And so to me, I want to call out recognizing that a lot of our clients are coaches. How often are coaches the ones pushing us to do more, be better? There's a coach that I have followed for years. And honestly, I don't know why, because she makes me a little bit crazy. She's kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard, but at the same time, I think I do also like her no nonsense attitude. She's another one that is like, nobody cares that you're trying, work harder. And it's like, at what expense? You have to sort of figure out, what's the balance there? What's reality look like for you? It may not be her version of reality, and that doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur. It doesn't make you less successful, et cetera, et cetera. So coaches, programs, and experts that constantly push the hustle, or the other side of that is, I made X number of dollars overnight. Let me show you how. Buy my thing for X number of dollars. And then you find out there's this giant cavern in between what they're saying and reality, and no real pathway to get you there. And so then you feel like a bag of poo, and you feel like an unsuccessful entrepreneur, and you've just put in all this work. And so the idea is just work harder. And so that's pretty challenging. One of the hardest things that I had to learn, specifically when I launched Automation on a Mission, was how to have better boundaries, because the other side of not having good boundaries is you don't ever get to turn it off. So one of the places where we can start practicing turning it off is creating more separation between how our clients can access us and our own personal time. And so I'm kind of getting into more of the solutions and things like that. But one of the common areas that I hear a lot when I hear about the clients that we work with, what are their programs that they're building? One of the things that they offer is access to themselves. And I'm not saying that access is bad. I'm just saying there's a time and a place for access, and it's not when you're having time with your family. And if that work stuff is constantly bleeding into your personal time, that is quick, easy ways to put yourself in a position where you're experiencing burnout because, oh my God, I just want one day where I don't have to think about X, Y, and Z. Speaking of, my wife's not here, so I don't know why I'm checking. My wife is the director of nursing at a skilled nursing facility. And even on our vacation, her phone dinging the whole time. And she knows it's not sustainable, and trying to figure out for herself, how do I create this so she can continue to love the work that she does? It's hard. You don't have to be in an entrepreneurial place to, be constantly experiencing that stuff. So I wanted to take a minute, and here is a great place. Actually, let me go back. Anybody have any other sources of burnout you guys want to call out? Boundaries, peer pressure.
Well, I mean, I think to the point that Tara made earlier, it's peer pressure and self pressure, because
Yes.
we do feel that pressure for our families. And I'm similarly, so I am the primary breadwinner. So the fact that I've left a corporate job and I'm now saying like, okay, yeah, I'm going to pay the mortgage. It's going to be great. I'm like, you know, I mean, so yes, there is that peer pressure to be successful, but there's also like it's the revenue pressure, it's the family pressure, but it's the pressure you are putting on yourself in
Absolutely.
doing this. And that's, it's hard.
Yeah.
What just came up for me in response to that is that I would believe you have more pressure to demonstrate the freedom of entrepreneurship to almost justify you leaving corporate so that
Yeah.
your family's not impacted. Because if they see you just working the same and they're still impacted, they're going, well, what's in this for me kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that would be hard. I don't have anybody to worry about there, but
Yeah.
I could see that would be an extra challenge.
Yeah. And I don't know if Amber will watch this, but I tell Amber a lot, we're not saving lives. Like we get to carry the future of your businesses, and that is something that I will never undervalue. And at the same time, her sanity is very
Hmm.
important to me because in order for her to continue to love serving you all to the extent she does, she has to go to bed, she has to
Hmm.
eat food, and two things that she will forego for you. And so my goal is to help her avoid this. And it's nice
Good.
because I do tell my wife, save lives, don't take lives, because she
Hmm.
births a lot of cats in her job. And so it's like, how great, you've got this, like, we're just here making money. And she's out there trying to make sure that old people don't walk out onto Colfax. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So burnout. So what does it look like? It doesn't have to be a total dysfunctional collapse of yourself and your psyche. One of the things that I have found is, those simple tasks take a lot longer because I do a lot of other stuff to avoid doing them. I don't want to do things that I used to enjoy doing, like going and getting on video and talking to myself. I love making my snackable content. My goal is usually 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Usually they're 7 to 10. I'm sorry about that. I'd say I'm working on it, but I'm not. I just want to enjoy making them. And if I can get them done sooner or, shorter, even better. With
Hmm.
some support. So I'm going to talk a little bit about accountability buddies here in a couple minutes. But one of the things that has been a good signal for me is when I start to withdraw within, especially as an extrovert, like that's a red flag because if I'm not connecting with people, there's a reason why. Like, what's going on? What do I need to do to address it? Oh, and let me go back to this. So this isn't about being lazy. This is literally about system overload. This is about your equilibrium is off kilter. And so the things that you would normally enjoy doing are not simply because you're overloaded. And then the avoidance of work, clients, or decisions. When you're at that place of burnout, growth, progress, forward momentum, even though you think you want it, you don't really want it. And so you start doing self-sabotaging behavior, like not responding to emails in a timely fashion, not reacting to or making a decision that you need to make, essentially avoiding that reality. Those are things that I would say are pretty high symptoms or signs of burnout. Anything you guys want to add? What you got?
Well, Christy, what's coming up? Because I've been questioning. I even went to the doctor. I go, how do I know if I'm burnout is to the extent of being depressed? Like,
Mm,
when does
Hmm.
depression come in and actually affect all these little clouds, right? And it's easy to say just do one little thing or do one little thing for yourself, but that's a technical, I mean, a medical diagnosis, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
how closely tied are they, and how are they related?
I
And
mean, I would say they're probably pretty closely connected. And, for me, when I think about depression, and I'm not a mental health professional, but what comes to my mind is there's clinical depression and there's environmental or situational depression. And to me, the distinction is there something in your environment that's causing those feelings that this too shall pass kind of situation versus do we need another intervention that's bigger, more long-term, more strategic,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. But either way, both of those things can totally impact our ability to show up and do our best work. And at that point, I think it's kind of semantics as to whether or not you want to call it depression or you want to call it burnout. My guess is it probably looks very similar in your business. What do you think?
I do. I think, and I think it could be almost the distinction between a therapist and a coach. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost more socially acceptable to say I have a life coach, right? Rather than to say I have a therapist for a reason. And we might be leaning on burnout. I've been talking about burnout
Mhm.
for months and then had to go look in the mirror and I go, wait a minute, what are you trying to tell yourself? But I think it's more correct to say burnout now and not maybe say depression.
Well, and I will also say I think that might be a generational thing because like the millennials and Gen Z, everybody has a therapist. That's what I see in my younger compatriots. It's
Okay.
like that's I think my mother is a counselor, but like even she was like, "Oh my God, you're on anxiety meds and you're getting a therapist," and I'm like, "Just woman." She's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, this is what we do to keep our brains healthy. I am raising a child. I am working. I have a marriage. Like a lot of crap,
Yeah, I
And
agree.
yes,
We live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing I've learned, and I will say this, like, so I was always very anti-medication, and I'm not, Tom Cruise jumping on a couch here. I guess he was jumping about Kate and chastising about the people who are on
It was
anti-anxiety or
Brooke. It
antidepressants.
was it was Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields, yes, the whole Tom, that whole thing. Here's what I
Postpartum
learned.
depression.
It is like it could be temporary, but it's also like that is dysregulation of your mental of the chemicals in your brain. So funny enough, my husband now has to go on the exact same medication I'm on because he's having trouble breathing when he gets stressed out at work. And it's like, yeah, that's panic and that is anxiety and it is physical manifestation. It's not something you can just therapy your way out of. That is a physical chemical reaction issue. So you know what? Like you got to deal with this. And people who are older than us, some of them just never did. And the younger people are like, oh no, no stigma around therapy. Let's go for it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start adapting to the way the young people work.
Right.
That's real smart and proactive. Something, so I had a client years ago, like pulled me aside and he's like, you're $1 million business, right? And I was like, at the time that was not my trajectory. And we talked about this idea of I'll feel less stressed when, and he was just like, you need to let that go. And it was probably the most insightful business advice I'd ever gotten because what he said, and it was the reason why I can talk about that whole never the goalpost that's forever moving was because he put a name to it. And he's like, you will never feel less stressed than you do today because when you get to that place that you want to or aspire to today, you will have changed the goal. And so your stress is the disalignment or the misalignment of where you are versus where you want to be. As long as that's always changing, you're going to have friction in that relationship that you have with your business. So the goal is not to not have stress. The goal is to understand how to manage and navigate that stress in a way that's sustainable and healthy for you and your life and your family and all that kind of stuff. And the thing about it was like it totally changed my view on stress. And the other thing he told me was, I can't even tell you how many times I've made $1 million and lost it. I can't tell you how many times I've built a successful business. And it's great talking to serial entrepreneurs who've built and failed because they are the ones that will talk about picking themselves back up again and starting all over. And different serial entrepreneur, interesting, both dudes. I have a client who he will randomly come up with a new business idea, call me the next day, oh my God, we need to get everything set up. And he's got this sort of core model that he builds everything off of over and over again. He'll make all of his money, get bored, shut it down, take a couple of months off, resurface with the next latest, greatest idea. And we're on the next ride for a couple of years until he gets bored. But he knows and has that confidence in himself to understand I can build it and I can lose it and I can build it again. And I think that's a very different way of thinking about how we one see the money that we're making, but two, also how we build a business that failure truly is just sort of giving up. It's not this idea of not getting that thing that I want or not reaching that goal. It's literally a matter of when do I throw in the towel and say I'm not going to continue to pursue this particular goal. And that I think was really transformative for me.
And I will say, I do feel like that it may be a gender linked situation because you said they're both men. And in my personal experience, I see a lot of that as well. And because they don't they don't take no for an answer. They're like, no, I'm gonna just do it over here then. And you got salespeople who make tons of money and then lose a job, and then they make tons of money and they're okay because they're like, nah, I can always build it again. And I feel like to some extent that is potentially a masculine energy thing.
Yeah, I could see
So
that.
something we need to maybe take a page from.
Yeah, and I think I don't remember, well, I basically signed on for some sort of big commitment when that first guy told me about the whole learning how to manage stress. And it was like, and I was just like carrying the weight of the world, you know. And when he said that, it was like all of a sudden I put it down, like
Hmm.
I let it go, you know.
Yeah.
And to me, that fear of losing everything, like it really came from this idea of, could I, like, number one, what will the world think of me, you know, and like they'll see me as a failure instead of as this successful person or whatever. But the other piece that really came of that was like an awareness about how little confidence I had in myself, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, wow, like rather than acknowledge everything I've been able to do by myself, I'm criticizing or I'm, it's, you know, and having you know, my first big, you know, many years of careers was in wilderness and outdoor recreation, and the thread or the theme, no matter what sport, was don't look where you don't want to go. And I was like, okay, well, that's exactly what I'm doing in my business. I'm staring at this thing that I'm afraid of, which is failure, which is going broke, which is all these things, and realizing I'm creating stress that I'm carrying, and I totally don't have to. And
Hmm.
those were pretty, you know, transformative ideas and thoughts. And I think a little bit of a segue, but you know, it's still related to, you know, like you carry that burden for so long without a break, and that's how we end up here.
And I do think if you could pull his advice out of the transcript and like put that into the follow-up email about this session, that is gold. And I would love to have it written so that I can put it in my notebook.
Absolutely. I will try to make that. So I don't have, this was way before the era of Fathom Note Taker following me into every meeting,
Yeah.
but absolutely it changed my life for sure. And so I'm glad that it was impactful for you too. So I'll put something, and I don't typically send these out in an email, but I'll put it in the member community and make sure I call out that particular thing. So, okay. So, I put this slide in here specifically because I think about where I was at last year, last January, when I came into the year as a crispy critter. And, for all of the members that had, you know, come into our ecosystem at that point, which was about 70 people, keeping going was the only option. You know, like it wasn't like I can be like, yeah, I'm going to take a month or two off and not pay my bills and so on and so forth. Like I needed to still be the role model. I still needed to be the resource. I needed to still be the safe landing pad for other people. And so, and similar to parenting, not a parent, but you know, like you can have your bad days and your kids still need you. So same sort of thing here. Our businesses, our clients, the people we've made promises to, still need us to deliver on whatever it is that we committed to. So number one, minimal viable you. So what are 3 things that protect your energy? So we talked about one of those issues that tends to cause a stumbling block are poor boundaries. So maybe this is the first place where we start to where do I feel stress hitting us the most? Where do I feel like if I can create a little bit more, carve out a little bit more self-care time, me time, you know, how do I make those things happen? So what are a couple of non-negotiable areas that I can bring back into my world that maybe have been overtaken by the business? And then the other part of that is taking time out of the business. And that part I think is super important. So what is something that you can do to you know, like it's a date night, I don't take my phone, or I reestablish this boundary with my clients so that these are the times when they can contact me, that sort of thing. I hinted at a reverse, at an accountability buddy. And I'm a huge fan of accountability buddies. I think that they are super helpful, but we typically think about them as even promoting the hustle culture because our accountability buddy helps us reach our goals. But what if our goal is to not have goals? What if our goal is to leave work at 5 p.m.? What if our goal is to take a lunch break or to go for a walk or use a Pomodoro timer and stretch our legs? By the way, if you need something that forces you to take a break, get a Morkie because every 45 minutes I am out of this chair and we are stretching our legs and we're checking the vegetables and we're looking to see how the grass is growing, because she requires that I take her out there every 45 minutes to just look at the backyard. Don't know why, but it has been the best thing for me and my mental health, because I get my steps in just walking her outside every 45 minutes. So if you need an accountability buddy and you're lacking in people, dogs apparently also do a good job. But my point about this here is I'm thinking about it more from the perspective of, let's take away this idea of aggressive goal setting and use our accountability buddy time as self-care, and use it as an opportunity for us to reestablish the things that serve us and support us. One of the things that we are doing in our team calls is we have our professional goals that we're checking in on and reporting on every day, but we're also having ones that are about how you're feeding your soul and yourself and taking care of yourself. And it's little things like, I did my nails, or I got on the treadmill, or I went for a walk. And the celebration of those things needs to be as exciting as I finished this person's website, or those kinds of things, because they make those things a lot easier and more manageable. And then realistic boundaries, using simple language like I'm off after such and such time. One of the things, I don't know if and this is probably best for April, one of the things that that Amber and I've worked on is not apologizing for things that we don't need to apologize for. And this is something that women are really notorious for. I'm ready to start talking to girls who apologize when they're like holding the door. And I'm like, why are you saying you're sorry? Like, you're literally doing me a favor. Thank you. You know, like, so instead of saying, I'm sorry that it took me an hour to respond to you, thank you for your patience, and moving on. And that to me is a good way of saying, you know, I respect you and your needs. And also, you know, we have multiple clients. I needed to go to the bathroom, you know, et cetera, and not feeling like our sheer presence in the world is a burden for other people. So what are your boundaries, and how do you practice self-care in a way that respects not only your relationship with your clients, but also your relationship with yourself? And then the other piece, because this is automation on a mission, and so let's just find a way to talk about automation. What are some things that you are doing manually that might be dragging you down? What are things that you are doing today that could be automated? What are tiny levers that could make your life just a little bit easier? What's one thing that takes one piece of pressure off of your plate? And how can you implement that as a way of, you know, creating some more space and some more ease in your world? Anybody think of anything else they would want to add for how to stay in the fight and keep fighting while experiencing burnout?
I had to just catch how many times I was saying no to the wrong things. I got myself boxed into a box, and for me it was being around golf a little bit more and being outside, and it became easy to say yes because there were multiple invitations out there. But then it took to I'm leading a statewide golf tournament, and I'm also running a little Friday morning league for working women, right, which are my client, and being able to see that as a potential business networking opportunity. I mean, it just took down the wall a little bit more. So it self-perpetuated some energy for me.
And when you got out there, did you remind yourself that you really enjoy golf?
Yeah, no question. I enjoy playing better, which is going to be a little bit more of an investment, but
yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I get bogged down and I forget to go out and ride my bike, and it creates this vicious cycle. And so I was in that cycle until this past weekend, and we went up to the mountains, and my first ride was about 12 miles shorter than I wanted it to be because it was super windy. And Annika was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Broke the seal. That's all I cared for. I got back on the bike. I pedaled for a couple of miles. It made me feel good." And you know, but then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit easier the next time and the next time. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to take that first step, that first piece of action, you know, and then once you do that and you remember this rewarding thing actually helps create more space for the things that I need to be doing in my business. Absolutely.
I mean, for me, it turned out to be looking at what was missing.
Yeah.
What was missing, and I was in complete control of that. So
yeah. I would add also honesty, especially because so much of what we're doing is working in the helping fields. And when we are honest with the people around us, including our clients, I think they give us a bit more grace and a little bit more understanding. And so, if that's not something that's a part of your current toolbox, and it's possible, I would encourage you to, think about how, sharing with others, because not only do they learn from you, but they can also, be the support that just in just being more understanding. When we tell our clients, hey, so and so is out for a couple of days, doing some self-care, oh my god, the red carpet is rolled out, and it's just amazing to see that that they care about us as much as we care about them.
Just to validate on that a little bit is that, my focus right now in my implementation slow or whatever it is to work on my emails. And a few of my emails went out very personal about this, and the engagement went through the roof. I mean, it was just so affirming to see that, people are begging you to be a little bit more real with what's going on. So
absolutely. I did when I was willing to give Mark Zuckerberg money for the sake of just giving him money, I ran a series of awareness ads specifically around blog content. And I ran it for, I think it was like 2 or 3 months, and it was just a low dollar spend to see what content performed the best. And over, ironically, Burnout was the highest performing, and it was a blog specifically about creative burnout. But they want the stories. Am I fit? Am I meant to be? Am I built to be an entrepreneur? Those kinds of content always perform better than any sort of tips and tricks. And like, do we do sales and marketing? Yes, and we can talk about those things and also be real and honest and vulnerable. And that's going to be the best way to help our followers and subscribers because they want to know that we're real and that we're human. Okay, so I added this one, same thing, like in terms of, I felt like I had all this stuff going on. And so the inspiration behind this was somebody had given me advice. Maybe now is not the time to make big decisions. So when somebody confronts you with a $30,000 coaching program that's totally going to revolutionize your business and yada, 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 and you're like, I'm barely hanging on right now, maybe that's not the time to say yes or no to that opportunity. Maybe it's a not right now. Maybe now is not the time to embark on this new big launch that requires a ton of your time, energy, emotional resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I put this in here to think about, like, if we're really focusing on ways that we can preserve energy, practice self-care, making big decisions suggests that we're in a place of clarity. But if we're truly at a place where we are not making the right sort of, like, where we're not living up to our own personal standards, perhaps what we need to focus on first and foremost is getting ourselves at a place where we can trust our decision-making skills again, where we can trust our goal setting, where we can trust our performance measures. If we're at a place where those things are a challenge, or we're not able to live up to our own expectations, something's got to give, and maybe taking on something new isn't the right thing to do at this time. Does that make sense? So keep going, but try doing it differently. So number one, redefine what success looks like. Maybe success right now isn't about that money goal tier. Maybe it's about, where's the joy in my day? Maybe the goal is around, rather than making X number of dollars, I want to launch this program and I want it to have this kind of experience. So the goal shifts from a monetary goal to a quality of experience kind of goal, as a simple way of reducing the level of pressure that you're putting on yourself. Don't be afraid to pivot in place. You don't necessarily need to, like, burn it all down, and you don't need to rebuild everything. It's literally around finding out what are the things that are draining for you, what are the things that are not bringing you joy, what are the ways that you can either delegate and outsource to other people if they are things that have to continue to happen, and what are the ways that you can identify what are the things that maybe don't need to be here, and how can we adjust those things so that they are more in alignment with where you're at this current time in your business. And then I put borrowing beliefs as a nice way of saying fake it till you make it. Even if we're not at a place right now where we feel amazing about all the things that we're doing. I don't need to say to a whole community full of wooey people that we know that thoughts become things. And we understand this idea that if we continue to focus on the things that we don't want, we're going to continue to manifest more of the things that we don't want in our world. Whereas if we continue to focus on the things that are good, the things that we want, the things that have brought us joy, things that we can find gratitude in, those are the things that are going to help us see us through those darkest days. So however you want to frame this in a way that is positive and uplifting for you, the focus being we want to be less around the things that are not working and more around the things that are. Any thoughts, ideas, comments? Last one. Okay, so here's my closing thoughts, next steps. If you're experiencing burnout in your business, focus on just one thing. Don't try to fix everything all at the same time. Focus on, maybe it's how you're managing your energy. Maybe it is around how you're practicing your boundaries. Maybe it is finding someone that you can trust, that you can rely on, that you can delegate tasks to. What is one small thing? Notice there's a pattern and a trend here, that the goal is tiny changes. The goal is not overhaul the entire thing. Tira, I want to bring us back to your comment about depression versus burnout. It doesn't matter what you call it. The same thing is true here. Low energy. Low energy and inactivity makes all of these things feel very big and daunting and overwhelming. And so one small movement is huge and not something that should be underestimated or undervalued. So I just wanted to sort of call that piece out again, that when you are in a state of burnout, when you are in a state of depression, it is hard to move the boat forward. So recognize that, give yourself grace, pick one small thing that you can do, celebrate those tiny little wins. And like I did the other day, my 22-mile bike ride, it was 8 miles, and I celebrated the win that I broke the seal. Didn't make my goal, also didn't end up in the gutter. Happy about that, because the win was no joke. Celebrating the micro wins wherever you can find them, practicing that gratitude, and it will trickle into every other aspect of your life as well. Fun. And that, ladies and ladies and ladies, is my conversation about burnout. Did I miss anything? Do you guys want to talk about anything else about it?
No, I could make a comment on this micro wins thing, because I'm very sensitive to one of my clients that's a big C-level trying to make a change, big time stuff. And I have to be careful as a coach not to appear to be just the next to do kind of thing. And it really is about advocating for her well-being and her balance and learning new skills so that you'll take those with you wherever you go. It's not about executing some big career transition thing. But what I've struck, they really struggle. They're going to be in this group like us, high achievers, doing more, continuing to do the effort of just stopping and reflecting and taking that little win. Like I see it as the thing that's going to sustain you, because it's building resilience when that next wave comes and knocks you off your surfboard, right? So you've got to do it, but there's a resistance in this community to actually do that one thing, taking that time. So I send a weekly check-in. I always ask for that. Whether they respond or not is another story. But I just try to keep them present to how important it is to do that. And then I have to practice that. I have to practice with that myself. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And it goes back to Marie Forleo, because she says, I think it's her that said this, we live in the gap. We live in the gap of not ever achieving what we, not ever getting there, not ever. So we're always looking, we're always achieving. And so you have to allow yourself to be out of the gap for a while and not look at it that way. So,
yeah, I think networking is really helpful.
Social.
Because having that community allows you to see, for me, it helps me get to see how I've come. You know what I mean? Like, and when I spent too much time living in a bus, I wasn't good at building connections and community. It wasn't until we got settled that that really changed for me. But I can see such a huge difference simply because of how I'm interacting with other people, because how I talk about what I do is changed. How the business evolves more. simply because of how, the feedback that you get from other people, not just trial and error with clients, but also how does the audience that you're talking to, respond to the things that you have to say. And I think one of the things that, I came, when I launched Automation on a Mission, I was really involved with a group called Fem City, really involved right now with eWomen and the Polka Dot Powerhouse. All of them are really good at teaching you how to celebrate wins, and they make time for it because women are not good for it, are not good at it. And I think that has been a really big help for me to, like, even if the win is, I got rid of concrete zilla in the backyard, like what is it doesn't have to necessarily always be, professional, but like, what are the wins in the business? What are the wins in our lives, however big or small, like hold on to them. They're safety lines, and they're going to take us to the next one.
Well, just I mean, because what showed up for me last week was polka dot, right? And the part of me that didn't want to think about, I don't have anything to share, well, like go into that dark hole, like I don't have anything new to share. I still went, I showed up. So the win was the showing up, just to be around the energy of other people. And it didn't really, and people were happy to see me. And so you get it from another source, whether you're ready to share some big launch or big idea or something big and new. So, but it was the showing up, and I go, that's what I'm going to acknowledge that for now. And I showed up. So.
Yeah. And you never know. I'm obsessed with these boutique fitness classes. I go probably 4 or 5 days a week. I've actually never had muscles that you could see until I started doing these classes.
I don't know what is that? I'm not familiar with that. Is that something local to you?
Well, yeah, so the company is called Bodied Fitness, and I call the instructors, I call them yummy bunnies. Well, I call all the 20-something-year-olds in the class yummy bunnies because they're all adorable and ripped, and it's the first half is step aerobics, and the second half is strength and Pilates. And the goal for me is to get out of there without puking. It's mentally challenging and physically exhausting. And amazing. Also, I can't dance. So, like, in the slightest. So this is like the best way to get to wiggle and stuff without having to look sexy, because there's nothing sexy about how I move my hips. So anyways, long story short, I met her at a networking event, and she changed my life. So you never know. Yeah, the owner. She's a cute little yummy bunny. And my wife says all the time, just admit you just want to be a yummy bunny. I'm like, of course I do. Yeah. I think that ship has passed, but yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
Yummy bunnies, unite. Anything else you guys want to chat about? Thanks, April.
That's great.
No, just great reminders and good source of energy. So that's great.
Great. All right, we're going to go have our team meeting now, so I have to run.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, baby.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.